Welcome. Dr. Y.V. Subbarao presents Part 1, Origin of Life, Evolution and Liberation. Origin of life is a tenacious problem that challenges many branches of science but also extremely multifaceted. Questionnaire to explore the problem of origin of life and evolution. This is the diagram on the origin of life, downloaded from the Astrobiology journal. All the questions raised here have been addressed in the subsequent videos. Origin of life is a multifaceted problem, and the questionnaire to explore the problem is given here and below. Which one of the four forces known to physics is the criterion in origin and evolution? How organic molecules needed for life could be formed from inorganic components? Where did information in cells come from? How do cells know how to evolve? How does the DNA store information? How do you get from chemicals to code? How do you get a code without designing one? How the initial cell was made? How a self-replicating cell from abiotic non-living components is generated? What abilities do cells possess that we don't? What is the origin of consciousness? Do cells have consciousness? Are cells self-aware? What is life? How did life first arise from the inorganic world? Which process best explains how life as we know it appears from non-living matter? How does life work? How did the universe come to be? Is there life elsewhere in the universe? Are all the questions to explore the problem. Classification of Hindu scriptures. Hindu texts are manuscripts and voluminous historical literature which are related to any of the diverse traditions within Hinduism. A few of these texts are shared across these traditions and they are broadly considered Hindu scriptures. These include the Itihasa and Vedas. Hindu scriptures are traditionally classified into two parts: Shruti, meaning what has been heard, originally transmitted orally, and Smriti, meaning what has been retained or remembered, originally written and attributed to individual authors. The Vedas are classified under Shruti, which are shown in the diagram. This is the diagram on Hindu scriptures and its classification, which is self-explanatory. Vedic astrology is a multifaceted discipline. Jyotish, Vedic astrology, a Vedanga belonging to the four Vedas of times immemorial, being a multifaceted discipline encompassing all sciences, provides answers to all questions aforesaid associated with origin of life and evolution problem satisfactorily. Hence, hereafter, the title runs as Vedic Astrology Unravels Origin of Life, Evolution and Liberation. Jyotish, Vedic Astrology, one of the six Vedangas belonging to the four Vedas of times immemorial, is an extremely multifaceted discipline, being the derivative of many branches of science, namely astronomy, astrobiology, astrophysics, astrochemistry, geology, evolution, Indic philosophy, etc., that unravels origin of life and provides a viable alternative theory of evolution of life consistent with origin. Vedic astrology is a multifaceted discipline. Here, Jyotish, Vedic astrology and panspermia origin of life. We find it is a derivative of astronomy and a selective adaptation of solar system and selective adaptation of star constellations for its studies. The adaptation of solar system is the sunlight coming in physics. The selective adaptation of star constellations constitutes inorganic chemistry, that is astrochemistry. The whole thing is organic chemistry, abiogenesis, interaction of electromagnetism with matter in panspermia origin of life, leads to protocell. The derivative of astrobiology, astrology is the life side of Jyotish, signifying cosmic counterparts of components of protocells and derivative of astrophysics, the principles of Jyotish owe their basis to astrophysics. Geology and Indic philosophy describes about meteorites, which are the souls of enlightened persons. And in the Indic philosophy, we find the transmigrating soul, together with subtle body and causal body, enlivens the physical body with hereditary information imprinted in the genomic DNA and imprinting of information of cause and effect based on genomic DNA and morphological DNA created by genomic DNA. A living body with all the three qualities, sattvic, rajas, and tamas, and with all three states of mind, waking state, dream state, and sleep state. Jyotish Vedic astrology for evolution. Living cells propelled to Earth by stardust for evolution through interaction of interplanetary magnetic field IMF with Earth's magnetosphere of myriad frequencies. Vedic astrology is an exposition of interaction of electromagnetism with matter in panspermia origin of life and a theory of interaction of interplanetary magnetic field with Earth's magnetosphere in evolution. Vedic astrology unravels origin of life and evolution. This is an interaction of electromagnetism with matter in panspermia origin of life, where we find the solar system that gives rise to sunlight, which is an electromagnetic wave, and the stars, the 27 lunar constellations selected in Jyotish, are the representatives of the elements of the periodic table, and they incidentally signify the cosmic counterparts of the components of the living cell. At the bottom, the interaction of interplanetary magnetic field IMF with Earth's magnetosphere in evolution of life. So the interplanetary magnetic field excites the solar flare, and the solar wind in turn interacts with the Earth's magnetosphere, and the neural network of the organism is excited and the information, and it is responding in resonance with the frequencies, just as the radio in our house. In exploring for life elsewhere in the universe, Earth is the benchmark, and in the same vein, unraveling the origin of life, origin and evolution of human being endowed with intellect, cognition, and consciousness serves as the benchmark. The traditional contention of philosophy of Hinduism is not inconsistent with contemporary scientific knowledge. Jyotish Vedic astrology, one of the 6 Vedangas belonging to the 4 Vedas, is the derivative of astronomy. Its life side is astrobiology, and the genesis of its principles owe their basis to astrophysics. It is the study of how electromagnetism interacts with matter in astrological divination and timing of events. The whole edifice of astrology rests on 2 vital considerations, namely, astronomically correct horoscope, that is, the tropical chart with planets' places for the place and time of birth of the native for astrological divination, and astrologically correct planetary periods based on the longitude of the moon from vernal equinoctial point for timing of events in the life of a native. This is the picture of the celestial sphere, wherein we find the celestial equator and the ecliptic in the yellow dotted line, and the celestial equator in red line. These two intersect at 2 points. One is the vernal equinoctial point starting Aries from there, and another one opposite to it is the autumnal equinox. In between we have the 2 solstices, the summer solstice at the top and winter solstice at the bottom. So these 2 axes are oblique to one another at an angle of 23.5 degrees. In the scientific progressive horoscopy of Vedic astrology, the planetary periods signify periods of promising good and periods of definite evil, constituting destiny, besides neutral periods signifying free will. Destiny is the result of one's past actions according to Newton's third law of motion. The subjective response of an individual to objective forces at work is chiefly dependent on which one of the 3 qualities, sattvic, rajas, and tamas, predominant in the individual, while these qualities can be consciously altered. Vedic astrology, how it works. Man is placed in an objective world, the stage in which he has to play his part. Every moment of his existence, he has to respond subjectively to his objective environment. The subjective response to the objective forces may take the form of cooperation, neutrality, or opposition. These three forms of response may be active in deed, or in thought, or in both. The field of astrology consists in revealing the objective forces at work on man, who has to respond subjectively to them. The objective forces for good or evil are indicated in the horoscope of the individual. Vedic astrology, how it works. The basic principle of astrology is that the objective forces for or against an individual are predetermined, but astrology leaves the individual to respond to these forces in his own way with the aid of his free will. It is for the individual to respond by cooperation, neutrality, or opposition, and by deed or thought or both. The nature of the response is entirely with the individual. The horoscope simply indicates the objective forces for good or bad, their periods, their direction, and their strength. It follows that neutral fields and forces are also indicated. Vedic astrology, how it works. The diagram shown here is self-explanatory regarding the action of an individual to the objective forces of environment. Vedic astrology, how it works. A wise man will neither cooperate with the promised good nor oppose the definite evil indicated in his horoscope, which is called destiny. He does neither and observes a perfect neutrality both in mind and deed. Rather, he learns a lesson from the evil events in his life as the effect of his past actions and realizes that he should use his free will to his best advantage by a positive action to alleviate himself from suffering in future and rebirth. Man appears to be practically a slave to the efforts of his past karma, that is destiny, but he is a free agent with regard to fresh and independent deeds. If these fresh and independent deeds resulting from his free will are in any manner directed to thwart the effects of his past karma, he seems to be doomed to failure. On the other hand, if the fresh and the independent deeds, which need to be positive in action, taking cognizance of the negative effects of his past actions, karma, are directed to neutral fields and neutral periods, the success appears to be proportionate to the force of the will and the effort put forward. It is through this free will with which man responds to fate by deed and thought that he stores up the good or bad karma for the life to come. In other words, elevates himself or brings himself down from life to life. Today's free will is tomorrow's destiny. It is this view of a harmonious combination of fate and free will that seems to account for the baffling inequities in life while affording an answer to the perennial subject of fate versus free will. Vedic astrology, being an exposition of interaction of electromagnetism with matter in panspermia origin of life and interaction of interplanetary magnetic field with Earth's magnetosphere in evolution, is thus qualified as a predictive science of astrological divination and timing of events in the life of a native from the tropical horoscope. We come to the end of part 1. Thank you.